know how much I love you. Never know how much I care. When you put your arms...
What's that word that Heather used in the prayer? What do you say? What was that? We have traditions here? We have traditions? Yeah. Yeah, we do have some traditions. So, and this is kind of one of them. Hey, before we dig into 5 Shades of Grace, let me kind of let you in on exciting stuff that's happening here at Church of the Way. And really, in the next 5 weeks, we got a big, huge, major change. Maybe you know this. Maybe you're new today, and this is kind of a new idea for you, is that we are moving into a permanent home in 5 weeks from today. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. A pretty traditional space. So we merged with a church, Harmony Grove United Methodist in Auburn. It's about 12 miles from here. It's a little bit farther away than we thought we would ever go. But as I go each and every week to paint and we put in cabinets and stuff, I get more and more excited about that place. And we're meeting with contractors, doing everything and really making an old place new again. And that excites me. We've got a community of faith there of about 35 folks at Harmony Grove that are so excited about seeing life happen in their building again, the way it did years ago. And I'm excited about, we live in a culture that's kind of a reuse, recycle. And I'm grateful that we're getting to reuse and recycle a facility and give it some place, some freshness and some life, and do some awesome things there. So next week we're going to be showing you a video a little bit about some of the renovations that are happening there and tell you a little bit more about that. It's been an awesome process. We still got a long way to go. Basically every Saturday, if you want to come help, I'll put a paintbrush in your hand or something, and we'll get to work. It's been a lot of fun. So maybe you have heard that there is a movie coming out this Valentine's Day that's based on a fairly popular book. Has anybody heard about that? I say fairly popular because it sold over 100 million copies. Now let me give you some context. Thriller is the greatest selling album of all time, and it sold 60 million copies. Michael Jackson's Thriller. Yeah. Can I? Oh, no, never mind. I won't. Yeah. People think The Walking Dead's new. I mean, Thriller album, but come on, man, Thriller, the video. So let me give you some context of some books. The Shack sold 20 million copies. A couple of old favorites, Gone with the Wind and To Kill a Mockingbird, sold 30 million copies, and one that you probably read in middle school or high school, Catcher in the Rye, sold 65 million copies, but not 100 million. And I saw, it was back, about 5-6 months ago, I saw that this movie was coming out in February, and I thought maybe this is what people want, right? Maybe this is what people want. Now, I'm not going to go into over the next 5 weeks whether you should or should not see the movie or read the book. Some of you have, some of you will, some of you never would. All right? Whatever. I'll make my decision for me. We're just not going to go into that. Here's what's clear about these statistics, that they tell me something, is that this phenomenon has struck a chord with America. And that is that we would all like to kick things up a notch in our love life, right? We'd all like to, as Emeril Lagasse would say, to kick it up a notch in our marriage. And sometimes we think the answer to that is to spice things up in the bedroom, right? That's what this is. This is what this tells us, that America is hungry for something more, and maybe that's what we think the answer is to relationships. That's what we think the answer is to marriage. And who doesn't want a steamy hot sex life in marriage? Right? Right? Now the parents are going, I should have gone the kids' way. Should have gone the kids' way. This reminds me of a great story about Bishop Bevel Jones. Now, a lot of you may not know, we don't exactly look like typical United Methodist churches, but we are a United Methodist church. That means I'm one of over 1,000 clergy pastors that serve underneath a bishop. He appoints us, or she, we have a male bishop who appoints us to churches, and that's kind of the system that we have. Typically, bishops are elected every 4 years. It's a huge honor and privilege. Every state doesn't even have someone always elected. If you are, you typically go serve in a geographic region. In our area, the Southeast. Rarely do you serve the area that you come from, right? Because I would just appoint all my buddies to be the pastors of the big churches, right? So that rarely happens. Bishop Bevel Jones is kind of an icon. He and his wife, Tuck Jones, were in ministry for years. He's an icon in North Georgia. He was elected bishop. He went to serve somewhere else, but then came and actually got to serve over his home conference in North Georgia. And Bishop Jones tells a story about when he was elected bishop. And like I said, this is an incredible honor and big deal. And they get back in the car, and Bev said, "Tuck, in your wildest dreams, would you ever imagine that I'd be elected bishop?" And Tuck said, "Bev, you were never in my wildest dreams." I hope that's not quite your marriage. Sometimes we would like to imagine that our wildest dreams would come true in marriage. But the truth is, you don't need just a flash in the pan, right? That's not the answer to marriage. Maybe it helps. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But marriage that lasts a lifetime needs hot burning embers, right? Hot burning coals that warm a marriage forever. Because here's the thing about your sexiness, and mine too. It's like a deck, okay? You ever built a deck? So I built a deck at my house years ago, and I went to Home Depot, and you know the checkout line at Home Depot, they got all the books like kitchen renovation or backyard barbecue, you know, they got all this stuff, and you can buy like a deck magazine. So I bought one of the deck magazines to get some ideas and all this stuff, and at the end of the article it said, out on the day that you complete your deck, take a good look at it, because it will never look that good again, because it's wood. If you know anything about wood, you can't stop. Father Time and age and weather and sun just damage wood. And I tell that to young couples when they get married. Listen, you need to take a good look at each other, because he's going to get uglier and older, and so are you, right? And right now, let's just face it, you look better right now than you're going to look 10 years from now, okay? You cannot stop it, right? You cannot stop it. So if our sexiness is the only thing that becomes kind of the heartbeat of our marriage, and we think that's the answer, I have a concern about that. Sexuality is a huge part of marriage, and we're going to talk about that on one Sunday during this series on February 15th. All the men are like, mark that one down. I'm getting up early that day, right? The teenagers are going, don't sit next to mom that week. Don't sit next. God designed husbands and wife for this beautiful thing called sex to enjoy, and it's nothing wrong with wanting to have sex with your spouse. And the church has been prudish about this issue for too long. But here's the concern I have that I see when I see 100 million copies. Here's the concern I have about that. It is spicing up your love life. That's not a 50-year answer, right? Emily's grandmother died a couple weeks ago, Mama. Papa died about 3 years ago. This is a picture of them 4 years ago at their 70th wedding anniversary. 70. We got my brother-in-law this week. I was like, do you have a picture of when Mama sat in Papa's lap at the anniversary party? And he has pictures of everything. So, and he sent that. You know, to have that kind of levity in your relationship, to have that kind of something that lasts 70 years, I mean, it's going to take more than, you know, a steamy bedroom, right? It's just going to take more than that. If that's all you're good at and you're terrible at everything else, your marriage won't last. You know, and if you have a great, really hot 4 or 5 years and then you get divorced, you know, it just takes more? There's a better answer out there. And I think God has given us time-tested answers to what it looks like to last a lifetime. And I think what marriage needs to last a lifetime is a whole heck of a lot of grace. A whole heck of a lot of grace. Now, what is grace? Now, it's a church term. We hear that all the time, right? Amazing grace. And in church, we define it like this: unmerited divine favor, mercy, pardon. And friend, I want you to know, if you don't know about that grace, I sure hope you'll find out about it. That God loved you so much that he gave his only son to die for you and me, that we would have grace. When Jesus died for us on the cross, he pardoned us for our sins, for our mistakes. I hope you know that. It's really important stuff. When we talk about grace in church, most of the time that's what we're talking about. But grace, that word, that beautiful word, man, I love that word, has such a deeper meaning. Now, there are occasions that your spouse needs pardon, right? There are occasions. But man, look at this. If you keep digging, just go look at a dictionary. I talk about grace, and it says this: disposition to or an act or instance of kindness, courtesy, or clemency, a temporary exemption or reprieve, the quality or state of being considerate or thoughtful, a way of moving that is smooth and attractive and that is not stiff or awkward. You know that term, like she carries herself with such grace. A controlled, polite, and pleasant way of behaving. Wouldn't that change? Right? That if we're just considerate, thoughtful, that we have a way of carrying ourselves that is kind, that is pleasant. The truth is, often we are more considerate and kind to a waitress or waiter at Chili's than we are to our spouse. And we get home and there's a tone and there is a meaning behind our words that is anything but kind, thoughtful, considerate, pleasant. I mean, would that just change your marriage? If you just everything you did in marriage was just you just moved in grace. You just spoke with grace. That would change. It would change everything. Could you live forever with someone who had grace? Would it smooth over the rough edges? Would you not get as frustrated? And would you not do things to frustrate your spouse? Would you want to give yourself physically to a spouse who had grace? Would it change the way you talk to and about each other? Marriages that last a lifetime. I don't think the answers to those marriages is in a bestseller book. I think the answer to marriages that last a lifetime, that make it 50, 60, 70 years, and isn't that the goal? I think they've got a whole lot of grace. Now, singles, divorced folks, teens, and you're thinking, well, I'm just going to, tune out on this for the next 5 weeks. This isn't for me. This is for mom or dad, or this is for those married folks, and I'm just here to see friends or whatever. No. Listen, God's got something in store for you. All us married folks, we're trying to, Heather prayed it perfect. We're trying to fix ourselves the way we fall short. You get it right from day one. Every one of us would tell you that. Get it right from day one. Some of us in this room have gone through a couple of marriages or 3 marriages. And we're getting it right this second time or this third time, but you got a chance. We don't want you to go through that pain. Get it right the first time. So I hope you'll stick with it over these 5 weeks so you can be ready from day one. Well, today we're going to talk about something that I think is the currency. I call it the currency of marriage. And I wanted to just share a song with you because it reminded me so much to just set us up for the issue that we're going to dig into the last half today.
When you meet that certain someone you've been searching hard to find, it's a new love full of passion that can sometimes make you blind. I don't mind being swept away if I know right from the start So before we go much further, girl, can I trust you with my heart? In the time we spent together, I have learned to trust in you. So many things you've given before I even ask you to. But reality and romance are sometimes far apart. So what I really need to know is, can I trust you with my heart? Can I cast my cares upon you? Can you stand the heavy load? Can I count on you to walk me down that long and winding road? If you promise me these simple things, I can guarantee you can always count on me. Can I cast my cares upon you? Can you stand the heavy load? Can I count on you to walk me down that long and winding road? When two hearts solely surrender and are sworn to understand, it completes the perfect union between a woman and a man. So please don't misunderstand me. I don't want to go too far without knowing just one answer. Can I trust you with my heart? Please, girl, give me just one answer. Can I trust you with my heart?
So that's the $1 million question, right? Can I trust you? Can I trust you with my heart? And I call this absolute trust that we're talking about today. Absolute trust. And I say trust is the currency of marriage because trust is almost like a bank account, isn't it? When you invest trust in someone, it can be anyone, business, friends, especially marriage. When you invest trust in someone and you find them to be trustworthy, right? They live up to what you trusted them with. They're careful with your heart. Then what does that do? It makes a deposit into your trust account grows, doesn't it? Your trust, it grows. When you invest your trust in someone and they break that trust, what happens? They've made a withdrawal. And now your trust account is lower than it used to be, right? And there comes a time in some relationships when the trust account gets overdrawn. And when the trust account is overdrawn, you're in bad shape, right? Because now you've got a negative balance. And it's not just can I trust you, it's I don't trust you. I distrust you. I don't believe that you're going to follow through. Any kind of relationship we have has to have trust as part of it. Our business relationships, our volunteering relationships, everything we have has trust in it. Now here's why this is such a big deal in marriage. And isn't this true, right? The depth of the relationship determines the danger of the relationship. Right? Isn't that true? I mean, if somebody you don't care about disappoints you, lets you down, goes back on their word, betrays you, it's not that big a deal because you didn't like them anyway, right? But if someone you love betrays you and breaks your trust, it hurts, right? It hurts. because you have given them more of your heart. You've given them more of your heart. And this is magnified in marriage because your spouse is the only family you choose, right? You got the rest of them by blood or marriage, right? Even if you adopted a child, you adopted this baby that you just fell in love with his face, right? Or a toddler. But the truth is you didn't know much about them other than but now we're married, we meet someone and we know everything about their personality. We know their idiosyncrasies. We know their habits. We know what sports teams they like. That's really important to know. We know everything about them. And we choose them as family anyway, right? That I'm going to love you. I'm going to invite you to be a part of my family, to be a part of my life. I'm going to give you my heart, and I know everything about you. So I am willingly choosing to love you. I'm giving you my heart. This is why I say marriage is a lot like, you've been to the circus and seen the knife thrower? You know the knife thrower at circus? You ever seen that? And that's kind of what marriage is, isn't it? I mean, that's what trust in marriage looks like. Because your spouse, with one decision, with one phone call, with one wrong move, they can destroy you, can't they? Because you have given them so much trust, because it is a dangerous relationship, because it is a deep relationship. And the deeper the relationship goes, the more dangerous it gets. Now, here's the other thing that's true about trust, is that trust is the unknown space between expectation and behavior, right? Some of you have teenagers that you have done this insane thing that I'm never going to do. You've given your teenager keys to an automobile, right? And let them get in a car and drive away. I guess I have to do that at some point, right? But have you ever heard of Schwinn? That's a nice automobile right there. So you do that, and there are a ton of expectations when you hand over those keys, and all of us remember when our parents may have done that with us, right? The expectation is you are going to drive safely, you're going to drive the speed limit, you're going to obey all traffic laws, you're going to come to a complete stop, you're not going to be fiddling with the radio, you are not going to text and drive. In fact, your phone is going to be completely off while you do that. If I call you and you answer the phone, I'm going to kill you when you get home, right? I mean, so you've got all these expectations of what it's going to be like when they crank the car, pull out of the neighborhood, and you can't see them again. But the truth is, they control the behavior, right? And you're just trusting. If you did not believe that they were going to obey all traffic laws, follow the speed limit, come to a complete stop, not text and drive, if they're like, Dad, Mom, I mean, it depends. If no cars are on the road and I need to get in touch with a friend, texting's just easier for us teenagers, okay? I mean, if they said that, you're like, well, then absolutely you don't drive because I don't trust you. But I'm trusting that there are going to be behaviors. But it is this unknown space. You and I don't know what's going to happen. Otherwise, it's not trust. We're trying to control the environment. But in trust, we are completely and totally out of control. That's really what it's, and this happens all the time in the business world, happens all the time in families, when we lose trust because expectations weren't met. The prophet Micah talked about a time in ancient Israel, and we're going to kind of close with the scripture passage that I want you to memorize. This is a passage, though, that I think speaks to what it looks like in a world of distrust. And just listen to this description of just when things have gotten as bad as they can get in Israel. All right? This is what it says in Micah. I'm overwhelmed with sorrow, sunk in a swamp of despair. I'm like someone who goes to the garden to pick cabbages and carrots and corn and returns empty-handed. Finds nothing for soup or sandwich or salad. There's not a decent person in sight. Right living humans are extinct. They're all out for one another's blood. Animals preying on each other. They've all become experts in evil. Corrupt leaders demand bribes. The powerful, rich make sure they get what they want. The best and the brightest are thistles. The top of the line is crabgrass. But no longer. It's exam time. Look at them slinking away in disgrace. Don't trust your neighbor. Don't confide in your friend. And then listen to this, what Micah says. Watch your words, even with your spouse. Neighborhoods and families are falling to pieces. The closer they are, sons, daughters, in-laws, and you could put spouses in there, the worse they can be. What does that mean? The deeper the relationship, the more dangerous it is. That's what Micah's saying. Your own family is the enemy. I mean, that's got to win the award for the most depressing Bible passage ever, right? It's the most. That's the world. That's what it had come to. And some of us have lived with that in marriage. When you reach the point when you're always checking his cell phone behind his back, or when you're logging onto her Facebook, or when you're going through the expenses and you got a lot of questions. Isn't that a terrible feeling? Because all of a sudden, you have become really unsure about the unknown space between your expectation and behavior. You see, if we're honest, we just kind of expect the world to let us down. We expect that we can't always trust people. We can't always trust our bosses, even those that we might even call our close friends. But when we said I do, we basically said that I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to give you more leeway in this unknown space than anybody else on the planet. And here's what I believe is true, is that our spouse is constantly computing this unknown space in their minds. They are wondering this. I wrote some of these down. They are wondering if they can trust us, they can trust you, trust me, when they don't look their best, when they do something embarrassing, when they speak out of turn, when they gain a little weight, when they share something personal, when they make a move to be intimate, when they are vulnerable, when they count on you, when you promise something. They're trusting you that you're going to act appropriately, that you're going to be honest with money, that you'll share the same parenting values, that you won't commit emotional infidelity, that you'll engage in the relationship and not be passive. That's what they're trusting. It's a lot. And you could come up with a million other things on a list, right? And what we know about trust is that, you know how long it lasts? Just like that. You've probably heard the old joke where, the woman says, "You never tell me I love you," and the guy says, "I told you on our wedding day, I'll let you know if it changes." I wouldn't suggest that, by the way, guys. But you can't do trust that way. Like we agreed, we got married and we agreed that we trusted each other and it's okay. You don't trust each other. Trust is like, it's constantly evolving, right? It's like that account. Your bank account doesn't stay the same, does it? Because you're spending money. Hopefully you're depositing some money, and your checking account's changing all the time, right? And your trust account is changing all the time, and it can be wrecked. It can be wrecked in one blow. It can be wrecked in chipping away. But it's this incredible organic thing in our relationships that needs constant renewing. It needs constant refreshing. It needs constant updating because it's always changing. Because what you trusted your spouse with yesterday, they could break that trust today. I mean, So the Apostle Paul wrote this one verse in his letter to the church in Corinth, in Corinthians, that is this unbelievable verse about trust. And I think it's talking about to the church about learning how to trust each other, learning how to trust leaders. And I think it is a pivotal verse for marriage. This is what it says in 1 Corinthians 4:2. And if you want to study these further, these passages, get one of our Bibles at the free Bible table. Paul says this: "Now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful." You read that with me? Now it is required that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful. There's two really important concepts in there that Paul talks about that talk about there's two players in trust, right? The truster and the trustee. And the first thing that sticks out to me is this word here, given. We like to talk about earning trust, don't we? We like to talk about that. He's earning my trust. She's earning my trust. And Paul says, you don't earn trust. You just give it away. Sounds a lot like grace, by the way. 5 shades of grace. You don't earn trust. No. You just have to give it away. It is the most intimate gift that we can give. And you just have to keep giving it and keep giving it and keep giving it. If you won't give away trust, then you can't be close. This relationship can't go anywhere. It is critical. It's critical. If you want your own checking account, then you're not giving your spouse trust with your money. If you always want the lights off when you make love, your spouse would maybe like a lamp on every once in a while, then you're not giving your spouse vulnerability and yourself. If you override every decision they make with the kids, then you're not giving your spouse trust in parenting. If you never tell them how you feel, guys, if you never open up, then you're not trusting them with emotions. Here's the crazy thing. If you are married, okay, how many of you are married? Just raise your hand. If you're married, you are currently in the only relationship you have ever been in that is working so far. You ever thought about that? You ever thought about that? Like every other relationship you've been in ended, right? It was a dating relationship. Maybe some of you broke off an engagement. Maybe some of us have been divorced a time or two. But whatever other relationship you've ever been in, if you are also in another successful relationship, we need to talk after worship. You're about to have one less. Do you know what I'm saying? So here's what I know. No, listen. I know that you have given this trust away to others, and you have been hurt. I know that. Every single one of us in this room has given our trust away to someone else, and they hurt us. But that's not your spouse. That wasn't them. Or maybe it was. And maybe your spouse has hurt you and you've given that trust. Listen, if you want a deep, intimate relationship, you have to give it away. You remember what we said? It's dangerous. It's dangerous. Love is dangerous. It's like giving your spouse those knives and putting you on a wheel and spinning you around and saying, "Go ahead, honey, I don't think you'll hit me." That's it. But if you want depth, you have to have danger. And trust is dangerous. You just have to give it away. The second thing it says there, instead of this word earn, I love what it says. It says you have to prove faithful. Prove trustworthiness. Prove that I am worthy of them giving trust over and over and over. And friend, it never stops. I have known couples who have been married for over 50 years who've broken trust and gotten separated or gotten divorced because they forgot that you have to keep proving it again and again. And now here's what I want to guarantee you. All right? I'll make you a promise. You're going to disappoint your spouse. Right? You're going to break trust because you are not Jesus. I'm fairly certain of that. I don't know much, but I don't think you're Jesus. And your spouse is going to disappoint you because I also do not think you're married to Jesus. Hey, that's fine as long as the little one up front here doesn't shout and say amen. She ain't married to Jesus, that's for sure. They're just going to disappoint us. So what do? You know, and we're gonna raise and so when we break trust, our spouse has the question, then can I trust them? Can I trust them? Now listen, you might be in a relationship where you say, I'm to the point where they have proven that they are not trustworthy. If that's you, I hope you'll mark your connection card about talking to a pastor. I would love to talk to you or get you to the right kind of counselor. That's beyond today, okay? But the only thing that we can do when we do disappoint our spouse is we just have to prove. We just get up the next day, I'm going to prove trustworthiness. This is a never-ending process at marriage. You will never, ever get to the day that say we have finally, totally, completely trusted each other. The only way to have absolute trust is this, is that the only way to grow trust is to repeatedly give trust and prove trustworthiness. Right? It's the only way. Unless you just want to be really good roommates. And friends, I know a lot of couples that are really good roommates, but they're horrible husbands and wives because everything's on the surface, because they don't trust each other with anything. And I don't think that's what you want. I don't think that's what God desires in relationships. And Paul tells us that we have to give trust and prove trustworthiness. And the only way is to grow that by doing it over and over and over again. Here's the big error in thinking about marriage that lasts a lifetime. People think that marriages like my wife's mama and papa that make it to 70 years, people think they never hurt each other. The truth is, the people that make it 70 years are the couples that hurt each other and disappointed each other and let each other down and decided to give it again and prove it again. So we're painting over at up at Harmony Grove. Have I invited you to paint? Have I done that? Okay. I couldn't remember if I did that or not. So we're painting, and I remember when I first started painting, my mom had me paint the deck rails, and I was terrible. So we have lots of people coming to help paint, but you know what? I'm a pretty good painter now. So I used to put plastic down every time I painted. I used to tape everything, right? Tape the door, the railings on the door and everything so I wouldn't get paint on them. I don't put plastic down now. I don't tape anything now unless I got to have a perfect line for a stripe or something. And you know why? Because I painted every room in our first house, and I painted every room in our current house, and apparently I'm going to paint every room at Harmony Grove United Methodist. So you just get better, right? You just get better. I'm going to tell you something. Occasionally, I get cocky, and I turn over a paint can when I didn't have any plastic. That happened to anybody else? All over the wood floors, all over the carpet. Occasionally, that happens. I don't decide to just quit painting forever. I go back. You know what sometimes I do? I put a little plastic down there the next time until I get better, until I learn to be more careful. Because the only way to grow is just to keep doing it until I trust myself again. The only way to grow in your relationship in trust is to keep giving and keep trusting. This is why a relationship with God, I believe, is so critical to being a husband and wife. Because all a relationship with Christ is about, all God beckons us to do is trust Him more. Right? To put our trust in Him. And singles, teenagers, young people, divorced folks thinking about getting married, listen, a man or woman who can trust in God can trust in you. And a man or woman who has proven trustworthy with God will prove trustworthy with you. So when you go looking, you find a man or woman who was trusting in God and proving themselves trustworthy for God. And you'll find yourself a great spouse. For those of us that are married, I got 2 questions for you this week. Just 2. Am I giving the trust required for him or her to prove trustworthy? Or am I keeping it right here, surface? Am I giving them the trust required for him to give them trust means that they could fail. They could spill the paint. They could mess up. They could disappoint you. You could get hurt. But your trust will never grow unless you give it, unless you let them make a deposit. And the second question is, am I proving trustworthy with the trust he or she has given me? Your spouse trusts you with a million things. Caring for children, right? Taking care of the finances, taking care of the house, taking care of your end of the chores, their emotional well-being. They trust you with a million things. Are you proving trustworthy, or have you been taking advantage of the trust that you have been so delicately given? They have given you the most precious thing. And every single one of us that are married ask ourselves the same question every morning. Can I trust him or her with my heart? Because one phone call can change everything. Am I proven trustworthy with the precious gift that my spouse has given me, their heart? Let's pray.